Miami, Florida, April 2025. The sun dips below the horizon, bathing the city's glittering marina in shades of fire and gold. At the heart of the waterfront floats the Aurora Star, a 300-meter super-yacht that's less a boat and more a floating empire. Its decks gleam with crystal chandeliers, sultry jazz drifts through the air, and America's elite, tech moguls, real estate tycoons, influencers with millions of followers, clink champagne flutes under a canopy of stars. But beneath the glitz and glamour, a story of betrayal, heartbreak, and raw human truth is about to unfold. This is the story of Emily Parker, a young woman whose heart and dignity will be tested in a crucible of wealth, deceit, and redemption. The Aurora Star pulsed with energy as the gala kicked into high gear. Infinity pools shimmered on the upper decks, reflecting the neon glow of Miami's skyline. A rooftop bar buzzed with laughter, and the grand ballroom, with its marble floors and gold-trimmed walls, rivaled the finest venues in the city. The air was thick with the clink of glasses, the murmur of million-dollar deals, and the smooth, sultry notes of a live jazz band playing Fly Me to the Moon. Guests in tailored tuxedos and glittering gowns moved like royalty, their voices a symphony of privilege and power. Emily Parker, 24, navigated the crowd with the grace of a dancer. Her black skirt and crisp white blouse marked her as one of the yacht's serving staff, her chestnut hair pulled back in a neat ponytail that swayed with each step. Her hazel eyes sparkled with quiet determination, a fire that had carried her through a life of hustle. A college senior studying hospitality management at the University of Miami, Emily worked grueling shifts to pay her tuition, dreaming of one day running a 5-star hotel. Raised in a modest suburb of Miami by her single mother, she'd learned early that nothing came easy. Her father had walked out when she was 6, leaving her mom to juggle 2 jobs to keep them afloat. Emily had grown up watching her mother's resilience, and it fueled her belief in the American dream. Work hard, stay true, and you could build a future. "Another round of martinis for table 6, she muttered under her breath, balancing a silver tray of drinks as she weaved through the crowd. The guests barely noticed her, their eyes fixed on each other's designer labels, Rolex watches, Gucci handbags, diamonds that caught the light like tiny stars. To them, Emily was invisible, a shadow in a uniform, a cog in the machine that kept their night flawless. But she didn't mind. She loved the rhythm of service, the adrenaline of a busy night, the chance to glimpse a world she was determined to join. Every tip, every shift, every late-night study session brought her closer to her goal. Her phone buzzed in her pocket and she stole a glance during a brief lull. A text from Jake Thompson, her boyfriend of 6 months. "Babe, killing it at the club tonight. Wish you were here." Emily smiled faintly, though a familiar unease tugged at her. Jake, 26, was a DJ with tousled blonde hair, piercing blue eyes, and a smile that could charm a room. He worked Miami's nightlife scene, spinning tracks at exclusive clubs and hobnobbing with the city's party elite. Their relationship had been a whirlwind, late-night dates at 24-hour diners, walks on South Beach at sunrise, promises of a future together. But lately, Emily had noticed cracks. Jake was always borrowing money for new equipment or club fees, and his stories about where he'd been never quite added up. He'd show up at her tiny apartment with excuses, lost track of time, babe, or had to meet a promoter, and she'd let it slide, clinging to the hope that he'd grow up, that he loved her as much as she loved him. Emily, table 10's complaining about slow service. Sarah, her coworker and best friend, hissed as she rushed past with a tray of crab cakes. Sarah, a 23-year-old with freckles, a blonde bob, and a sharp wit, was Emily's rock on the yacht. They'd bonded over long shifts, sharing dreams and laughing at the absurdity of some guests' demands, like the time a tech bro insisted his martini be stirred exactly 17 times. Also, that guy in the red suit keeps asking for you. Total creep alert. Emily chuckled, adjusting her tray. "Got it. I'll handle table 10. She flashed her signature smile, the one that disarmed even the grumpiest guests, and headed toward the complaining group. Service was an art, and Emily was a master. She apologized smoothly, refilled their drinks, and had them laughing within minutes with a light-hearted comment about the yacht's dizzying wine list. Moments like these fueled her ambition. She could read people, anticipate their needs, make them feel special. One day, she'd be the one calling the shots, not serving the drinks. As the night wore on, the gala grew rowdier. The jazz band switched to upbeat pop, Dua Lipa's levitating pulsed through the speakers, and guests spilled onto the dance floor, their movements loose from champagne and whiskey. Emily caught a glimpse of herself in a mirrored wall. Tired but composed, her uniform pristine despite hours on her feet. She thought of her mom, who'd worked as a cashier and a cleaner to send her to college, and felt a surge of pride. She was doing this for both of them. Then she saw him, Jake. He was on the upper deck, leaning against the railing, a cocktail in hand. His black blazer and open-collared shirt screamed effortless cool, but what stopped Emily cold was the woman beside him. Vanessa Sinclair, a 40-year-old real estate mogul, was a Miami legend, rich, powerful, and notorious for her lavish lifestyle. Her red dress hugged her curves, and diamonds glittered at her throat, catching the deck's string lights. She was laughing, her hand resting on Jake's arm, her body language unmistakably flirtatious. Emily's stomach twisted. Jake hadn't mentioned being on the Aurora Star. He was supposed to be DJing at a club downtown. She forced herself to focus, delivering drinks to another table, but her eyes kept darting to the upper deck. Jake was whispering something in Vanessa's ear, and she threw her head back, laughing, her hand lingering on his chest. Emily's heart pounded. Maybe it was a networking thing. Jake was always chasing connections, talking about leveling up and making it big, but this didn't feel like networking. "Emily, you okay?" Sarah appeared at her side, following her gaze. "Wait, is that Jake? With Vanessa Sinclair?" "I don't know," Emily stammered, her voice barely audible over the music. "He didn't tell me he'd be here." Sarah's eyes narrowed, her freckled face tightening. "Girl, that does not look like a business meeting. You need to talk to him, now." Emily nodded, but her shift wasn't over for another hour. She pushed through the crowd, her smile tighter now, her tray heavier. Every laugh from the upper deck felt like a jab. Guests started to notice her distraction, one snapping his fingers impatiently for a refill. She apologized, her voice mechanical, and kept moving. When she finally got a break, she slipped up to the deck, her heart hammering in her chest. "Jake?" she called softly, stepping into the glow of the deck's string lights. The air smelled of salt and expensive perfume, the ocean breeze cool against her flushed skin. He turned, and for a split second, his face froze. Then he flashed his trademark grin, the one that had won her over 6 months ago. "Babe, what are you doing here?" "Working," Emily said, her voice steady despite the knot in her chest. "What are you doing here?" Vanessa, sipping a martini, raised an eyebrow, her lips curling into a faint smirk. "Oh, Jake, is this a friend of yours?" Jake's grin faltered, his blue eyes darting between the two women. Yeah, Vanessa, this is Emily. She works here." Emily's cheeks burned. The way he said "works here" made it sound like an insult, like she was beneath him. "I'm his girlfriend," she corrected, meeting Vanessa's gaze head-on. Her voice was firm, but inside, she was crumbling. Vanessa's smirk widened, her eyes glinting with amusement. "Charming, Jake, you didn't mention a girlfriend." Jake laughed too loudly, running a hand through his hair. "It's not a big deal. Emily's cool, right, babe? Just doing her thing, serving drinks." The words stung, sharp and cold. Emily's fists clenched at her sides, but she kept her composure. "Jake, can we talk? Alone?" He hesitated, glancing at Vanessa, who waved a manicured hand dismissively. "Go ahead, darling. I'll be at the bar. Don't keep me waiting." She sauntered off, her heels clicking on the polished deck, leaving a trail of Chanel No. 5 in her wake. Emily pulled Jake aside, her voice low but trembling. "What's going on? You said you were DJing tonight." "I was, but Vanessa invited me here," he said, shrugging as if it were nothing. "It's a big opportunity, Em. She's connected. She can get me gigs at places I've never even dreamed of. Vegas, LA, maybe even Ibiza." "And what's with the flirting?" Emily's voice shook now, her hazel eyes searching his face for the man she thought she knew. "You're acting like I don't exist." Jake rolled his eyes, his tone sharp. Don't make a scene, okay? This is business. You wouldn't get it? You're, working your little job here. Little job? Emily's voice rose, her hurt giving way to anger. This little job is paying my bills, and yours half the time. I've been covering your rent, Jake. His face hardened, his charm replaced by something colder. Look, I'm trying to level up. You should be happy for me. Not everyone gets a shot like this. Vanessa's offering me a way out of this grind, and I'm taking it. Emily stared at him, the man she'd thought she loved. His words cut deeper than she'd expected, each one a betrayal. Jake, if you're ashamed of me, just say it. He didn't answer. Instead, he turned and walked back toward Vanessa, who was now laughing with a group of suited men at the bar. Emily stood alone on the deck, the ocean breeze doing little to cool the heat of her humiliation. Tears pricked her eyes, but she blinked them away. She had a job to do. She wouldn't let him ruin her night. The next few hours were torture. Emily moved through the gala, serving drinks, smiling, nodding, while Jake and Vanessa grew bolder. They danced together on the ballroom floor, Vanessa's hands on Jake's shoulders, his laughter loud enough to cut through the music. Guests started to notice, whispering about the DJ and the millionaire. Emily felt their pitying glances, their murmured comments. Poor girl, didn't see it coming, but she kept her head high. Sarah stayed close, shooting her encouraging looks and muttering curses about Jake under her breath. He's a snake, she whispered during a quick break. You're too good for him, Em. I know, Emily said, but the words felt hollow. Her heart was breaking, piece by piece, with every glance at Jake's carefree smile. She'd believed in him, believed in them. How had it come to this? Then it happened. Near midnight, as the gala reached its fever pitch, Vanessa called Emily over to their table in the ballroom. Her voice was loud, slurred from too many martinis, and carried across the room. Hey, waitress, yeah, you, Jake's little friend, get over here and bring us another round, and make it quick this time. Emily approached, her tray steady, her face a mask of professionalism. The crowd around the table, Vanessa's friends, all dripping in wealth, watched with amused curiosity. Of course, ma'am, Emily said, her voice calm. What would you like? Vanessa leaned back in her chair, smirking, her diamond earrings glinting under the chandeliers. Oh, ma'am, how cute. Jake, isn't she adorable? So dedicated to her little job. Jake laughed, avoiding Emily's eyes, his arm draped casually around Vanessa's chair. Yeah, she's a hard worker. Gotta give her that. The table erupted in laughter, the sound sharp and mocking. Emily's cheeks flushed, but she kept her voice steady. I'll get your drinks. But Vanessa wasn't done. She stood, swaying slightly, and raised her glass to the crowd, her voice booming. Everyone, a toast. To ambition, to people who know how to seize opportunities, unlike some who, well, let's just say they're better suited to carrying trays and wiping spills. The crowd tittered, some clapping, others whispering. Emily froze, the tray trembling in her hands. The humiliation was public now, undeniable, a spotlight on her shame. Jake, lounging in his chair, said nothing, his lips twitching with a faint smile. Then, as if to twist the knife, Vanessa turned to Emily and sneered, her voice dripping with venom. Oh, sweetheart, don't look so sad. You're just not in his league anymore. Stick to fetching drinks and cleaning tables. It's what you're good at. Leave the real players to people like me. The words hit like a punch to the gut. The crowd's laughter swelled, a cruel chorus that echoed in Emily's ears, her vision blurred with tears, her breath catching in her throat. She wanted to run, to scream, to throw the tray at Vanessa's smug face. But she couldn't. Not here. Not in front of everyone. The room felt like it was closing in, the chandeliers too bright, the music too loud. She saw pity in some faces, amusement in others, and worst of all, Jake's indifference. He sat there, sipping his drink, as if her pain meant nothing. Sarah nearby gasped and started toward her, but Emily shook her head, her eyes pleading. She wouldn't break. Not yet. Excuse me, she whispered, her voice barely audible. She turned and walked toward the service corridor, her steps measured, her tray still balanced. The laughter followed her, Vanessa's voice ringing out with another jab. Run along, little waitress. Emily made it to the corridor before the tears came, hot and unstoppable. She set the tray down and leaned against the wall, her body shaking. Sarah burst in, pulling her into a fierce hug. "That was disgusting," Sarah said, her voice trembling with rage. "They're monsters, Em, both of them." "I thought he loved me," Emily choked out, her face buried in Sarah's shoulder. "How could he just sit there?" Sarah's eyes blazed, her freckles stark against her flushed skin. "Because he's a coward, and Vanessa's a bully who gets off on power trips. You don't deserve this. Nobody does." Emily wiped her eyes, forcing herself to breathe. "I have to finish my shift. I can't let them win." Sarah nodded, squeezing her hand. "You're stronger than they'll ever be, but I'm telling you, karma's coming for them. I can feel it." Emily returned to the gala, her smile brittle but intact. She served. She nodded. She ignored the whispers. Jake and Vanessa continued their performance, oblivious to the storm brewing. Vanessa ordered her around with exaggerated gestures, snapping her fingers and laughing with her friends. Jake joined in, his voice loud as he recounted a story about hustling his way up, never once looking at Emily. Each moment was a fresh cut, but Emily endured, her pride holding her together. The clock struck 1, and the gala reached its grand finale. A speech from the yacht's owner, a mysterious billionaire rarely seen in public. The crowd gathered in the ballroom, buzzing with anticipation. Emily, stationed at the back with a tray of champagne flutes, barely listened. Her heart was still raw, her mind replaying Vanessa's words. "Not in his league. Stick to fetching drinks." She felt small, exposed, like the world had seen her at her weakest. Then the announcer's voice cut through her thoughts. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. William Harrison." The name jolted Emily like a lightning bolt. William Harrison. Her grandfather. She hadn't seen him in years, not since her mother's falling out with him over his insistence on paying for Emily's college. William was a titan of the shipping industry, a self-made billionaire who owned the Aurora Star and half the maritime routes in the Atlantic. He'd built his empire from nothing, a classic American success story, but Emily had chosen to forge her own path. She'd refused his financial help, wanting to prove she could make it on her own. She hadn't even known he'd be here tonight. William stepped onto the stage, a tall man in his late 70s, with silver hair, a tailored navy suit, and piercing gray eyes that seemed to see everything. His presence commanded the room, silencing the crowd. "Good evening," he began, his voice deep and resonant, carrying the weight of decades of authority. "Thank you for joining me on the Aurora Star. Tonight is about celebration of success, of ambition, of the American spirit. But it's also about values, hard work, integrity, respect." Emily's heart raced. She stayed in the shadows, clutching her tray, praying he wouldn't notice her. She'd never told anyone about her connection to William, not even Sarah. It was her secret, her choice to be just Emily Parker, not the granddaughter of a billionaire. But William's eyes scanned the room, and when they landed on her, they softened, a flicker of pride crossing his weathered face. "Before I continue," he said, his voice growing warmer, "I want to share a story about someone in this room who embodies those values more than anyone I know." The crowd murmured, curious. Emily's stomach dropped. "No," she whispered, her voice barely a breath. "Please, no." William's gaze held hers, steady and unwavering. "My granddaughter, Emily Parker, is here tonight. She's not a guest, she's not sipping champagne or dancing in a gown. She's working, serving you, because she believes in earning her way. She's refused my help, chosen to build her own future, and I've never been prouder." The room erupted in gasps and whispers, heads turned, eyes searching until they found Emily at the back, still holding her tray, her face burning with embarrassment. Sarah beside her grinned, her jaw dropping. "Oh my God, Em, you're a secret heiress? Why didn't you tell me?" Emily shook her head, mortified. "I didn't want this. I just wanted to be me." The crowd's whispers grew louder. His granddaughter? The waitress? But William raised a hand, silencing them. His tone shifted, hardening, each word deliberate. "But tonight, I've learned that not everyone shares those values. I've learned that some of you have treated my granddaughter with disrespect, mocked her for her work, and humiliated her in front of this crowd. The air grew thick with tension, the ballroom so quiet you could hear the faint lap of waves against the yacht. Vanessa, standing near the front with her friends, shifted uncomfortably, her martini glass frozen halfway to her lips. Jake's face paled, his cocky grin gone. William's eyes locked onto them, unyielding like a judge delivering a verdict. Vanessa Sinclair, Jake Thompson, stepped forward. The crowd parted, leaving Vanessa and Jake exposed in the center of the ballroom. Vanessa tried to laugh it off, tossing her hair, her voice high and forced. "William, darling, what's this about? A misunderstanding, surely." "There's no misunderstanding," William said, his voice like ice, cutting through her bravado. "I have footage from the yacht's cameras. I have witnesses. You, Vanessa, publicly humiliated a young woman for doing her job. An honest job that takes more grit and heart than you'll ever understand. You mocked her, belittled her, and encouraged others to do the same. And you, Jake, betrayed someone who loved you, mocked her to curry favor with wealth. You both embody everything wrong with this world: arrogance, entitlement, and a complete lack of basic human decency." The crowd was silent now, riveted, some shifting uncomfortably as if recognizing their own complicity in the laughter. Emily's heart pounded, her hands trembling around the tray. She wanted to disappear, but she couldn't look away. William gestured to a massive screen behind him, and a video began to play. The footage was crystal clear, projected for all to see. Vanessa's toast, her cruel words, better suited to carrying trays not in his league. Jake's laughter, the crowd's mocking cheers. The camera lingered on Emily's face as she retreated to the corridor, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, her posture rigid with dignity despite the pain. Gasps rippled through the room as the footage ended. Vanessa's smirk vanished, her face flushing red. "This is outrageous," she shrieked, her voice echoing in the silence. "You can't just— Do you know who I am? I have lawyers." "I know exactly who you are," William said, his voice calm but lethal. "And I know you'll think twice before treating anyone like that again. This is my yacht, my rules, and my rules say no one disrespects my family or anyone who works here. You've made a mockery of the values this night was meant to celebrate." He turned to Jake, who was visibly sweating, his hands stuffed in his pockets. "And you had a chance to stand by someone who believed in you, who supported you, who loved you. Instead, you chose greed and cowardice. You're not a man. You're a disgrace." Jake opened his mouth, then closed it, his face ashen. The crowd's eyes bored into him, judging, condemning. William signaled to security, and two burly guards in black suits stepped forward, their expressions unreadable. "Escort Miss Sinclair and Mr. Thompson off the Aurora Star," William said. "They're banned from all my properties, effective immediately. And I'll ensure their behavior tonight is known to every business partner and social circle they value." Vanessa's eyes widened, her composure cracking. "You can't do this. I'm Vanessa Sinclair. I own half of South Beach. I'll ruin you." William's lips curved into a faint, cold smile. "Try. You'll find I'm not easily ruined." The guards moved in, one taking Vanessa's arm, the other gesturing for Jake to follow. Vanessa shrieked, yanking her arm free and spilling her martini on the floor. "Get your hands off me. This is assault. I'll sue." But the guards were unmoved, guiding her toward the exit with practiced efficiency. Jake followed, head down, silent, his earlier bravado gone. The crowd watched, some whispering, others nodding in approval, as the two were led down the gangway to a waiting tender boat that would take them back to shore. William turned back to the room, his voice steady but resonant. "Let this be a lesson. Wealth doesn't make you better than anyone else. Respect does, integrity does, hard work does. And tonight, my pride is with Emily, who's shown more of all three than most of you ever will." The room burst into applause, the sound swelling like a wave. Emily stood frozen, her tray still clutched in her hands, tears streaming down her face. Sarah hugged her tightly, whispering, "You're a freaking legend, Em. You hear that? They're clapping for you." William stepped off the stage and approached Emily, his gray eyes gentle but fierce with pride. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you I'd be here," he said softly, his voice meant only for her. I wanted to see you in your element, and what I saw, Emily, you're extraordinary." Emily's voice cracked, her emotions spilling over. "I didn't want anyone to know. I wanted to do it on my own." "And you have," William said, resting a hand on her shoulder. "You've done more than I ever could at your age. But you don't have to do it alone anymore. Let me help. Not with money, but with opportunities. You've earned them, and more." Emily nodded, wiping her tears, a shaky smile breaking through. For the first time, she felt seen, not as a waitress, not as Jake's girlfriend, but as herself. The crowd's applause continued, and she realized they weren't just clapping for William's speech. They were clapping for her strength, her resilience, her quiet dignity in the face of cruelty. The gala continued, but the mood had shifted. Guests approached Emily, offering apologies, compliments, even business cards. A CEO she'd served earlier in the night, a kind man who'd tipped her generously, promised to connect her with a hotel chain for a management internship. "You've got a gift," he said, shaking her hand. "The way you handle people, even under pressure, that's leadership." Another guest, a woman in a sapphire gown, pulled her aside and whispered, "I'm sorry," I laughed. "You didn't deserve that. You're going to go far." Sarah danced around her, chanting, "You're famous, Miami's newest superstar." Emily laughed, the weight of the night lifting, her heart lighter than it had been in months. She felt a spark of hope, a certainty that she was on the right path, no matter how hard it had been. As the Aurora Star sailed into the dawn, its decks quieter now, Emily stood alone on the upper deck, watching Miami's lights fade into the distance. The ocean stretched out before her, vast and endless, a mirror of her future. Jake was gone, and with him the illusion of their love. She felt no anger, only clarity. He'd made his choice, and she'd made hers. Vanessa's humiliation would be the talk of the town, her reputation tarnished in the circles she valued most. The gossip columns would feast on the story. Millionaire mogul ejected from gala for bullying waitress, and Emily knew Vanessa's pride would take a hit she'd never recover from. But Emily, she was just beginning. She had her dreams, her strength, and now a grandfather who believed in her. William had promised to introduce her to industry leaders, to open doors she'd once thought were locked. She didn't need his money, she'd never wanted it, but his faith in her was a gift she couldn't refuse. The American dream wasn't just a story, she realized. It was hers to live, built on her terms, with her heart and her hands. She thought of her mom, who'd be waiting up at home, probably with a pot of coffee and a million questions. Emily couldn't wait to tell her everything, not just about the pain, but about the triumph, the moment she'd stood tall despite the world trying to tear her down. She'd tell her about William, about the internship offers, about the way the crowd had clapped for her, and she'd tell her she was okay, more than okay. She was unstoppable. The first rays of sunrise touched the horizon, painting the sky in pink and gold. Emily leaned against the railing, the ocean breeze cool against her skin. The Aurora Star cut through the waves, steady and strong, just like her. She'd faced betrayal, cruelty, and shame, and she'd come out stronger. Vanessa and Jake had tried to break her, but they'd only shown the world what she was made of. And as the yacht sailed toward a new day, Emily Parker knew one thing for certain: she'd never let anyone make her feel small again. And so, under the Miami stars, a young woman found her voice, her power, and her future. This is the story of Emily Parker. Not just a waitress, but a force to be reckoned with, a testament to the strength of the human spirit. A reminder that no matter where you start, respect, integrity, and heart will always carry you further than wealth or status ever could. The Aurora Star sails on, but Emily's journey is just beginning. And the world? It's not ready for what she'll do next.